Beginning ODO podcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the ODO podcast, where normal is not my specialty. I am your host, as always, I'm not doing this to my voice on purpose, Adam Higgins, the Odd Dad Out. You can find me at oddadoutpodcast.com and on all the social media places at Odd Dad Out. And this is the show where I ramble and rant and tell you about whatever the hell's going on in my head. I make fun of some weird news shit, and I tell you about a podcast that I think you should check out because, like I always say, sharing is caring. Or in some cases, keep it to your damn self. Okay. If it isn't painfully obvious, I'm sick. And I highly contemplated not doing the show this week because I'm sick. And it's one of those things that's kind of been building since last week. And I'm suspicious of how I got sick because at this point, I'm the only one in the house that's sick. It's not like every other case of I get sick where the boys get something at school, like something's going around, like strep. Like a few years ago when at the boys' old school, it seemed like every 3 or 4 weeks there was an outbreak of strep and we'd get a fucking note home from the school. Oh, a child in your class has been diagnosed with strep throat, blah, blah, blah. And we'd get that like every 4 or 5 weeks. This time, I don't know. Nobody else is sick. Rihanna had a migraine stuff going on last week, but that's her migraines. I mentioned that last week. But yeah, I kind of going in Thursday night, going into Friday morning and through the whole weekend, and now even going into the week. And I'm just sitting here like, fuck, let this be over. I'm done with this already. Because up until like yesterday, basically, I didn't sound any different. And I've mentioned I've been trying to record lines for that audio drama sitcom podcast that I work on very occasionally. And I've basically been unable to do so for various reasons. Seems like every time I try and I realize my voice is pitching up really quick. I'm not doing this on purpose. This is just kind of how I sound right now, unfortunately. But every time I try and I have the time, it's like, okay, on this day I can sit, I'll have the time to sit and record and do this, because it's harder for me to do recording lines and things like that during the week because, got my little munchkin with me, and it's a little more time consuming of a process that I can't have any surrounding interruption. I can't, it's like I've got to basically build my little sound booth, which I don't use for the show. If you could tell the difference, I have echo, shit like that. But I build myself a little sound booth, my little blanket fort that completely encases my desk, and it kind of deadens my sound, which enables me to get very loud and very, active and do all the things and act in my booth. But I can't do that if I've got a 4-year-old asleep down the hall because, it might help with the microphone not picking up all of the yelling and echoing and all that stuff. But outside of my little blanket box, the dogs can still hear me yelling. And if the dogs hear me yelling, the dogs start barking. And then the dogs start barking and they wake up Sam. And then there goes any chance of recording. So, yeah, I can't really do that if he's asleep. And again, anytime, basically, I have to be in a situation where the boys are all sequestered and isolated away from me and stuff like that. So I've been trying to record for this show for weeks now, and every weekend, because like I said, Thursdays, I don't work. Or not, what am I saying Thursday? Sundays. The fuck I get Thursday from? Sunday, must be sick brain fog. I don't know. I'm seriously not even sure if I'm going to be able to go to work today. I think I'm going to have to Lysol my microphone and everything here in a minute. But every weekend when I'd be like, okay, Sunday, I need to sit down. I need to record the lines for this show. And I'll just say it. It's 2000 DC. I've talked about it before. I've done lines for 2000 DC before. I've played various parts on that show. It's a blast. I love doing it. Working on that show is a big part of what's made me want to get into voice acting and getting to play silly parts like being a waiter or being a male stripper guy. Yeah, I did that. But I love getting to play because every time he offers me a part, every role I get for that show are some weird character. I don't come in playing it straight. My wife would say I can't play anything straight, but that's, another thing. But but every time he's like, hey, I've got a part. Are you interested? I'm like, of course I'm interested, because the more I do, the better I can get and the more acting experience and all that stuff. And I can get better, more practice and do all this thing. But every time it's these weird character roles that basically require me to, okay, they don't necessarily require me, but I mean, come on, if you're going to be supposed to be very gay male stripper, you've got to flame it up a little bit. If you're going to be the waiter at a fancy restaurant, you've got to fancy it up a bit. My speaking voice, not conducive to a fancy restaurant. So I put on the worst French accent I've ever done in my life because it's just stupid and cheesy and funny. Because at the end of the day, I'm a clown. Don't know how the fuck I did that to my voice. See, that's the thing. When I'm sick, I sound like this and I get that going in my voice. Sorry if that just made anybody nauseous. I don't know what the fuck that noise was. But I get down like I need right now. I actually could probably, I'd be a good time for me to record the lines I want for this next part because I'm going with this kind of gravelly sort of character voice. But yeah, every time I get one of these roles from them, it's always these very different characters. I don't play just a me talking character. I'm not that guy. When it comes to this show, I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that comes in to do the zany character. And so now I've got another zany character. And then I didn't realize it until I was actually going through the entire script that I'm basically like I'm that guy who shows up for one episode, but I'm kind of a central focal character. This is the biggest part that I've got for this show before. Every time it's been like, you're the waiter. You're here for 5 seconds. You're the male stripper. Hi. You're under arrest. Gay the fuck out of it because he's a male stripper. Come on. That's what you're going to do. If you think male stripper, you're not going to, okay. If you're going to think male stripper dressed like cops and things like, I don't know. I just went with, just flamed it up. I don't know. Anyway. But all the different parts that I've played, or my big turkey monologue and went super redneck with it, just because who would have a pet turkey? I don't know. But they've always been so much fun to do. And now I get this one big part and I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. If I could fucking sit down and record it, because I went from, we've got this thing going on at home, or or something's going on. Like, we're doing bed stuff, or we got school stuff, or we've got this. And then a couple of weeks ago, I got whammed with if you've heard me talk about my hiccups before, and I don't remember if I mentioned this when it happened, but I got hit with my hiccups. And when I get hit with hiccups, I get painful, violent, long-lasting hiccups that in many cases can go on for several days. And I mean this literally. That I will have continuous hiccups for 3-4 days at a time, which I've heard if you have hiccups like that, you should go to the doctor. But I don't, because I don't want to go to the doctor. Because the last time I went to the doctor, they told me I'm supposed to be allergic to dairy. And you know what? Fuck you. I drink too much milk to be allergic to dairy. You can kiss my ass, doctor. That's why I no longer drink regular milk. Damn it. All that aside, I get these like painful, violent, like I'll have a hiccup and it'll like recoil and it'll like one big hiccup and then like aftershock in my chest. And it'll just be like, I feel like my heart's skipping a beat or something. the way it hits me, but I get these like wave hiccups. And when those hit you, if you've ever had hiccups like that, it is the most painful thing ever. It's like you're being punched in the chest from inside your chest. That is the best way I could possibly describe it, and I feel like it's actually fairly accurate. It is like being punched in the chest from inside your chest. And it hurts like hell. And it knocks the wind out of you. That's why I say it's like being punched. Like you can't breathe. You can't anything. It just like leaves you hunched over, and it hurts like hell. And then makes it nearly impossible to sit there and do a voice acting session and record lines for an hour or two when you've got, painful hiccups. Like, how am I supposed to do 3 takes of this when I can't get through 3 breaths? Because basically every minute or so, I'd get hit with one of these hiccup waves. And besides the fact that, hiccups are going to catch, I also would be completely out of breath. And it makes it nearly impossible for me to sync up my, I've talked before about my ability. And when I'm recording like this, that if I make a mistake or I screw something up or whatever, I go back and I re-record and I match inflection. And it's that whole, like, you can't tell how to say it. And because I can't tell when I'm listening to it, when I make a cut and I go and like re-record an entire chunk, because I can just, in my head, I can match the inflection that I used. Right now, I probably can't do that because my voice is going all over the place. Again, I'm all these weird wonkinesses with my voice. I'm not doing that. This is just what my voice is doing. It sucks. But yeah, I do all that. Well, I can't do that if my breathing, my voice, my everything is all over the place from stupid hiccups. Well, I had all that going on. And then this last weekend, I get sick. And again, this started really hitting me on Friday. And if you want to remember from last week, I had a ton of shit to do on Friday. I had to take our dog. I had to take Emmett, and say our dog, because we have 2 now, because officially Jasper is ours. I mentioned that we were taking on our dog. I don't remember. My brain's fried. But yeah, we now have a second dog. Our new old dog, Jasper. Yeah, I talked about this last week. I'm sure I talked about Jasper and all this stuff. I think. I don't remember. But we have another dog. If I didn't talk about this, let me know, because I've told the story of how we came to acquire Jasper so many times in the last few weeks. I don't remember if it was ever on the show. So if I didn't talk about how we came to acquire Jasper, let me know and I will share it. And maybe I'll just drop it. I don't know. I'll throw it out there. But yeah, so we now have 2 dogs. So I was going to take Emmett for his regular nail trim, and he's the one that has the thyroid condition. So he needed his annual blood work done. And so it's just hey, he's got to go get his blood drawn. They check his thyroid levels. They adjust his medication. And while we're here, he needs to get his nails trimmed. And well, I'm sick. And this appointment he has to take his medication at one time, and he has to have his blood drawn within 4 hours of his medication being taken. It's one of those sort of control things. And so 10 in the morning, I've got to take him to the vet to get his labs done. Then at noon, I've got, like 11:30, I've got to pick up the boys from school because they've got an early release because of parent-teacher conferences. Well, first conference is at 12:15, so we just kind of hung out. But we basically go from Emmett at the vet, go get the boys, and go do one of the parent-teacher conferences, and that was at 12:15. Go home so the boys can eat lunch. After lunch, flip back around, go back to another parent-teacher conference. And then somewhere in between the parent-teacher conferences and all that and lunch and everything, we get a call from the vet. Hey, Emmett's numbers are a little high. We're going to adjust his medication. So the pills I gave you this morning as a refill, we need to swap those out for a different dose. So then after parent-teacher conference, back to the vet to get all of that done. Now I've got all 4 kids in tow because it's after school and conferences and all this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm sick. And the boys knew I was sick because it was starting to come on. Again, it was starting to come on from Thursday-ish, but Friday morning and in through the conferences and everything. And they knew that, one, I had a late night at work. Two, I wasn't feeling, so I had no sleep. And again, it's one of those, follow me on social media. You saw my Fitbit post about, hey, 2 hours of sleep Thursday night going into Friday. And that's when I started really getting sick. And there's this suspicion that lack of sleep is related to this, but I'm still sick. And, I went through the weekend and my 2 days off and getting sleep on my days off. I was allowed to sleep the fuck in. I was so sick. Friday night, I took a big hit of Robitussin, and I think that was around 4 a.m. I woke up at 11. Rihanna got out of bed, did shit. She took a shower. She did a bunch of shit. I look up. The boys have come into the room, and they're fighting and being loud and rowdy. I'm thinking it's like 8. And I look at my clock and it's almost 11 o'clock. And one of the boys is like, hey, where's mom? Did she have work this morning? Where's mom? And I'm just like half comatose. What? Where's mom? And I just kind of flop my arm over to her side of the bed, which if she was there, she would have totally hit me for, because I would have just whomped into her. But I was like, oh, where is she? And I look, and, I've mentioned the bathroom door for our room is off my side of the bed. So there's like 3 feet between my edge of the bed. If I fell out of bed, I could fall into the bathroom. It's pretty much that close. But I look into the bathroom and I don't see the light on. And then I remember, oh yeah, if the door is actually closed all the way, it pushes against the carpet and you can't see the light. So I have no clue. I'm assuming she's in the bathroom because all the boys are looking for her. But then I look and it's like, oh, fuck, it's what? What time? And I'm still in a fog because, man, Robitussin knocks you the fuck out. And I just took the Robitussin cough because I was coughing a lot. And yeah. But yeah, all of this, like the rush of everything I had to do on Friday and then getting into Saturday morning, and I had to work on Saturday. And the thing about being sick on Saturday for me is if I try and call out, because I work every Saturday, most of the other guys in the office don't. But if I work on Saturday, or anybody who does work on Saturday, if somebody calls out or there's an emergency and they need somebody to come in or whatever, nobody will fucking come in on Saturday. That is just the thing. So I knew, and I was working by myself. I just had one job. It was cleaning tile in a building I'd never been to before, but I was just going in and I was cleaning tile, but it's about an 8-hour job by myself cleaning tile. And I'm like, fuck. Like if I call in, they're not going to want me to call in because nobody is going to answer. Nobody is going to fucking come in. There's no point in trying because the only people who would actually come in to help out if I'm sick are already working, and they're working out of town, so they can't do it. You assholes. So I sucked it up, and I actually, because I was working by myself, I had a lot of leeway about when I could come in. And I ended up not starting at work until like 4 p.m. I was like, nope, I'm going to spend the morning, get myself medicated, get food in me so I can try and get energy or whatever, and fucking just, and took a big ass nap before I had to go in. But man, that was probably one of the easiest days I've had with this shit. And I've stayed medicated. I have. And I'm normally not one to sit there and take medication every day. I hate it. I hate dealing with medication. But I fucking did it. And I got up and I got my fucking pills and I got a bunch of the fucking emergency immune therapy bullshit and all this shit. But taking all of that stuff, I was kind of feeling I'm feeling medicated. But I was feeling better. I wasn't body achy. I wasn't super stuffy. I could get through my day. The fever was under control. And basically, taking Zyrtec and Aleve, these are both long-term. They're 8 to 12 hour. The Zyrtec's supposed to be 24 hours. That's bullshit. I feel that shit wearing off after about 12 hours, but that's my system burns through everything. But, I knew taking those, I'd have workable, functionable me for a day. So taking this stuff and all the vitamin C and all this stuff and drinking the Sprite and eating the ramen noodles and the burying my face in soup and all this stuff. I'm doing all the standard, crackers and soup and Sprite and doing all the stuff to get better. And it made me functional. Still feel like crap. And any opportunity I could, I'm laying down and resting. But I'm still not through it. And it's pissing me off, man. Because as it's gone on, I go through like Sunday, I'm sick. I could have recorded. I could have done all that stuff, but I'm still like coughing. And I'm like, even Rihanna was saying, like, well, your voice isn't changed. Your voice, you still sound like you're sick, but you still sound okay. And now I don't. Come Monday, it was like, nope, I'm whatever the hell, my voice is gone and I can't. And so what the fuck? For the last few days, I've had no voice and I'm still sitting here like, I want this to be over. I still want this to be over. I was texting with Derek from Rolling Misadventures to schedule him for everything goes well. He is the what the fuck? September guest of the month. Again, brain fog. I don't know what month it is. He is scheduled to be my guest of the month. But we were kind of laughing because I was getting sick and you're like, hey, isn't this ahead of schedule for you? Because normally I get really bad sick in November going around National Podcast Post Month. And I think it's because I said National Podcast Post Month and started planning for that. So my body went into shock and started making me sick. But, yeah, that's been my weekend. Not just the weekend. Fuck. I still, again, I don't even know if I'm going to work. I've got to take my temperature and check on how I'm doing because I don't know. I really don't. Sucks. Because if you've been following me long enough, I've already burned through all of my sick days at work this year. Granted, it's September, but I've already burned through all of my sick days. So that sucks. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop with the sick talk, take a break, play some promos, and I will be right back with the news.
Hello, it's Heather from Sunshine and Power Cuts, the podcast that features two types of episodes which alternate. The Sunshine ones offer inspiration drawn from nature, but in the Power Cut ones, I share honest insights into my life living off the power grid in rural New Zealand. If you'd like to check it out, it can be found where good podcasts can be downloaded, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SunPowerPod. Until then, be empowered by nature.
Need to satisfy a hungry mind? Every week, Your Brain on Facts brings you science. Why does mint feel cold? History. King Charles II of Spain was so inbred, his family didn't bother educating him. Medicine. 2 doctors tested cocaine as an anesthetic by injecting it into their own spines. Music. Many hit songs and even entire albums were written for revenge. Technology. The first video game was made on an oscilloscope in 1958. Art. Restorers destroyed a Da Vinci sketch by dunking it in water and alcohol. And every other topic under the sun. Look for Your Brain on Facts on your favorite podcast app or at yourbrainonfacts.com.
Bullshit from the news.
All right. Back to the normal doing shit, even though I'm sick and I should totally have abbreviated this show. Whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on this first story because I don't like spending too much time when people die. But this week's news theme really is a, what were you thinking? That's the theme of this week. First up, pastor dies trying to beat Jesus fasting record. Yeah. I don't know what it is about pastors in South Africa, but they really like testing shit from the Bible. That just seems to be their thing. It seems like every time I see a news story out of South Africa, it is some preacher is dead because he was trying to do something from the Bible, like drink acid or get bitten by snakes or do something out of the Bible, and they're trying to test that they are this amazing preacher, that they can do all of the miracles of the Bible, and then they die. And in this case, you have a South African preacher who was trying to match Jesus goes off into the desert and fasts for 40 days and 40 nights. And he was trying to do the same thing. So I want to look at this from a logical perspective. Whether or not you believe Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, geographically, Jesus was in the Middle East. Let's just say that. All of that stuff took place in the Middle East. This guy's in South Africa. He is in the deserts of South Africa. Completely different environment. So the environmental factors that are going to determine your ability to survive for 30, 40 days without food are entirely different. On top of that, you don't know if Jesus really prepared. He could have been super hydrating or something, or carbo loading. I don't know. Jesus could have been very well prepared so that the effects of 40 days of fasting weren't nearly as extreme on him as possibly on this pastor who died. You have to take all these things into account. And all I can think of, what were you thinking? It's like, you can test miracles and you can test the Bible all you want, but facts are facts and science is science. The human body cannot survive completely without anything for 40 days. You need to have water, period. You can't, they say you can't go 2 weeks without water. I don't think you can go 1 week without water. But, depending on what your body fat content, muscle content is, things like that, you can only go so long without some sort of something in your body. So people don't look at this like, hey, if you were going to test that 40 days thing, how about you hyper prepare, like ultra marathoner prepare for this shit? Because, and work yourself up to it, because I'm willing to bet, and the article doesn't go into too much depth, he did not prepare. He did not go into this doing stretching his fasting and stuff like that to push his body. He probably went from I'm good, I'm and normal everyday eating and all that to I'm going to fast for 40 days in the desert all by myself and no one's going to know. Because that's what happens. And then 30 days in, somebody's passing by and finds your dead body in the desert, which is what happened. 30 days is when they found him dead. I hate calling out all these South African preachers, but damn it, stop trying to replicate the Bible. Okay, I spent longer on that than I wanted to. Moving right along. French court says employer responsible for man's death after sex. Yeah, so this is a complicated story. So the simplest version of guy has a heart attack while on a work trip, and his estate, it doesn't say who's filing for it, but his estate, basically, they're trying to claim the French equivalent of workman's comp, saying, oh, he died on the job. His employer is responsible for his death, and they have to pay, workman's comp and all this stuff, and accidental death because he was working at the time. So the thing is, he wasn't working. He was on a work trip, but he wasn't staying in the official hotel that was, rented for him by the company for the work trip. He was off at some girl's house. He went off and was having sex with some girl. It doesn't say if it was a out of town girlfriend or whatever the case may be, or he just met some girl at a bar, whatever. Doesn't get into that. But he's off at this girl's house. They have sex. Shortly thereafter, he has a heart attack and dies. So then his family or whoever try and file and claim that, well, no, he should be getting workplace insurance because this was an on-the-job accident. They said this is an on-the-job accident because he was on a work trip, and according to the ruling from the French court, during a business trip, an employer is liable for any employee accidents or an employee's death in just about any circumstance, including the consequences of an amorous encounter. So, yeah, basically because he was where he was on a company, he was there because of work. The company is responsible for all of his actions, no matter how he died on this trip. You know, if he was hit by a bus on his lunch break, the company's responsible for that because he was on a work trip. So theoretically, if he was at home and on his lunch break and went off and had a quickie on his lunch break and had a heart attack and died, the company would not be responsible for that because he wasn't on the clock. But on a work trip, the company is completely responsible for him 100% of the time. I'm sorry, I'm a little, no. I mean, and the company were basically like saying, no, he wasn't doing anything for work. He wasn't staying in the hotel that we put him in. He was off doing something completely separate from what he was supposed to be doing as an employee. He was not acting as an employee when he died. He was acting as a guy off getting some. He was off having an amorous encounter when he died. Not doing anything for the company. We shouldn't have to pay for this. Well, the French courts don't agree because France, and there goes my French listener. Now they've got to pay him like workman's comp and accidental death insurance and all this stuff. Like, what the hell? No. And even the insurance company was like, no, like the act of sexual intercourse is an act of everyday life, like taking a shower or eating lunch. This is not something that we cover. Like, we're not responsible for somebody having sex while doing an ordinary everyday thing. We're the job insurance. If he's working and drops something on it and something falls on his head, we cover that. We don't cover him going off and having, an amorous encounter, air quotes. No, but now apparently they do. I'm sorry, France, you need to rethink. I realize French is the love language, but you know what? No, that's dumb. That's a really dumb ruling. Just no. All right. We have come to the big what were you thinking of all what were you thinkings this week. It's time for the Jackass of the Week. Man spends 30 grand to fight a speeding ticket for $100. Yeah. So this guy in the UK, he got hit by a speed camera. Yeah, we know speed cameras. You're going down the road and it flashes you, and then you get a ticket in the mail saying that you were speeding, and then you're supposed to just mail the little thing back that says, guilty, not guilty. Here's my fine, whatever. So he gets one of these, says he was clocked doing 35 in a 30 mile per hour zone, or 30 kilometers. I don't know what it is in the UK. I think they actually use miles per hour, but they have a different miles per hour, whatever. It says miles per hour because it's got a little thing for the ticket. Anyway, so guy's clocked doing 35 in a 30 mile per hour zone. And he's so insistent when he gets the ticket back because it says, column 1, column 2, column 3. It's guilty and I don't want to come to court. Guilty and I want to come to court, or not guilty. Send me the date of my trial. And rather than put not guilty, which would be the proper response if you deny speeding, he put Options in columns 1 through 3 do not apply. No case to answer. But you know, you're if you're saying no case to answer, you're saying I'm not guilty. You're saying I didn't do it. That's what not guilty means, dipshit. So this guy ends up taking them back and filing an appeal and all this stuff and going through all this crap. And then and they rule against him. Yeah. They say, no, that's not how it goes. And so he has some video expert who goes and tells the courts the speed camera may have malfunctioned or it might have been triggered by a car in the other lane. And so he wasn't speeding, the other car was, or blah, blah, blah. He ends up going to court 4 times before they even hear his appeal, and he lost. And so he appeals up to the higher court. And he's sitting here thinking, oh, I'm just going to say, no, this wasn't me. This is a bunch of bullshit, and it's going to be over. So between court fees, court costs, and travel expenses, this dumb shit spent £30,000, because UK, to fight a ticket that was only $100. He literally spent his kid's inheritance. And he's sitting there, he's like, oh, I'm tired of the system steamrolling people. I don't know why I went with that, because I can't do an English accent right now. Like, I regret the amount of money. I just wanted justice. Dipshit, it was $100. Every single step of the way, you're spending more than the ticket. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Look, if they were gonna blow off the speed camera ticket, they'd have done it from the get-go. And honestly, I think at this point, it was on principle that they were pushing back and like, no, this guy's being an asshole. Because I'm pretty sure if he said not guilty and just fucking filed the thing and went to court on the thing and stated his case in court like normal, instead of writing, oh, this doesn't apply to me, no case to answer for. You were accused of a thing, guilty or not guilty. That's the case. That's the thing. You were accused of a thing. Even if you weren't there, you were accused of the thing. Therefore, you're going to have to answer guilty, not guilty. That's how the form works. And so he goes, oh, this doesn't apply to me. Look, asshole, just check the right fucking box and mail the thing back. You want to be a dipshit about it? Fine. We're going to drag you through court and we're not blowing off the ticket, which we probably would have just excused anyway. We're like, oh, you must have caught the car next to me because I wasn't speeding. I know I wasn't speeding. Look, my passenger says I wasn't speeding. Well, whatever. Fuck, dude, go away. But no, he wanted to be a dickhead about it. And so they dragged the court process out and were like, oh, this guy's being an asshole. No, he's paying the $100. Oh, yeah. Court fees, court fees, court fees, court fees, court fees. Because that's what kills you. Don't fucking go to court if you don't have to. You look at those fucking court fees, because if the court fees are more than the ticket, shut the fuck up. That's what his problem was. Stupid asshole. The fuck? Come on. It's just $100. At every step of the way, the fines and the fees were more than the ticket. Just fucking pay the ticket, you dumb fuck, because you're still going to have to pay those fees. And even when he went up to the highest appeals court, they still ruled against his ass. He still lost. He spent a year going to court to fight a $100 speeding ticket and lost and spent his entire fucking savings doing it. It was just $100, you fucking jackass. All right, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to play you some promos, and I'm going to be right back with this week's recommended listening feature. It's a show that I've talked about before with a guest, but didn't formally feature myself. I am talking about Oh No Lit Class.
Why is Jamie Lannister such a compelling character?
What is the best time machine from a movie?
Why did Michael Scott need 3 vasectomies?
To find out the answer to all these questions and so much more, check out A Podcast About Something.
Each week on A Podcast About Something, we dive deep into whatever we find interesting.
From movies and TV to sports and paranormal, we explore it all.
Listen and subscribe to A Podcast About Something on your favorite podcast app.
You can also follow us on Twitter at APA Something or check out our website, apodcastaboutsomething.com. And always, stay classy.
Hello! Welcome to BSP Believer Skeptic Podcast.
The podcast where two idiots debate weird phenomena.
I'm Chris, I'm the believer.
I'm Cody, I'm the skeptic.
We are an LGBTQ paranormal comedy podcast.
And this is how it works. Every week, we pick a strange but fascinating paranormal topic, such as
La Llorona,
voodoo,
Crimes of Passion,
empaths,
holiday traditions,
conspiracy theories,
and after presenting you with a lot of really fun information,
I tell you why I believe,
and then I debunk the crap out of it. And along the way, you might find some TMI information,
some gay humor,
and also some sexual innuendos.
Yes.
So tune in, have fun, and bye!
Recommended listening.
I'm Megan.
I'm RJ.
And we host Oh No Lit Class, a comedy literature podcast that tells you all the strange and sexy facts you never knew about the books you had to read in school.
Every episode is a fun, foul-mouthed spark notes for your ears, filled with author bios, plot summaries, bad impressions, and Megan singing.
It's mostly you that sings.
No, I sing well, she sings poorly.
That's not true. So come listen to us ruin classic literature one book at a time at ohnolitclass.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh No Lit Class. We're for kids.
No, we're not.
Oh No Lit Class with Megan and RJ, where, I mean, they kind of summed it up. They talk about the classics and sometimes a little bit more modern literature, but for the most part, they talk about the classics with a lot of dick jokes. Really, I don't want to say they dumb down the plot lines and the story, but they bring the language of classic literature and the history of the time and the backgrounds of the authors and all of that, and they bring it down to they repackage it into a language that is easier to understand, because guess what? They're actually both very well educated people. I'm going to say this, and no offense to Megan and RJ, but if you go with how they talk in the show, one would be assuming that they are not the most educated people, which is the absolute problem with assuming how educated somebody is based on how they talk. Believe it or not, I'm actually a very well-educated person. I still talk like this because it's really stupid to sound like a snooty asshole. And so they are taking the snooty asshole language, basically, that permeated all of classical literature, because that was just the way you wrote, and people were kind of pretentious, and they bring it down to earth and bring these stories in, and I think to a degree, they simplify the stories and bring them into 2018-19 language. And it's really funny because whereas in a story, they might talk about this amorous encounter. Let's go back to bring that back. They'll talk about an amorous encounter in a story, but what it amounted to, that was rape. The thing is like, oh yeah, well, he was just giving googly eyes to his stepdaughter and things like that. There's a lot of dirty stories. It's kind of like, to a certain degree, it's like the dirty bits, but focusing on the books rather than the historical figures. Stuff like that. The dirty bits focuses on the historical figures and some of the really naughty stuff that happens there. A lot of the time in Oh No Lit Class, they'll talk about the literary figures and the stories and how dirty they are. And the kind of a reference to how many figures and how many classic works of literature were written about, are was it euphemisms or metaphors for penis issues or whatever. Or I like going back to Finding Forrester. And he's like, women will sleep with you if you write a book. Like, women will sleep with you if you write a bad book. I could almost do a really shit Sean Connery. But yeah, there's a lot of it. And sort of those sort of the inside stories. And it's part bringing in the story so you can understand what's going on in the story and making it. And it's kind of like, because again, educated people, literary, English major, looking at the classics and presenting it to you in a way where if you're like, they're basically teaching these classic works of literature to a bunch of millennials who don't understand it, who don't like, or whatever the fuck the current crop of college students are who can't understand the classic literature because of the language barrier and comprehension, because kids are dumb nowadays, and bringing it down to a point where you can understand what's going on. And wow, this story's rapey. So many penis jokes. But it's hilarious. And I love, and as much as like, they're again, both very well educated, but man, sometimes RJ just, I don't think he reads the books. And even if he does read the books, he plays dumb well enough to not, it's either way, it's funny. No matter what, like, he plays oblivious. Sometimes he knows, sometimes he doesn't. Either way, it's hilarious. But yeah, I love the way they play off each other. And it's just like the way they explain stories and the goofball nicknames they give to different authors. And it's just, but you're learning. And that's the thing, is that when you actually peel it all back and to take away all of the jokes and all of the modern language of things and the super condensed Cliff Notes version of the story they give you, you're actually learning these stories, and you're learning about not only the stories, but the time period and the author and the history and all of the things that go into it. And somehow they're fucking tricking you into learning some shit. They are. Again, very much like Dirty Bits. You take away all of the silliness of it, you're actually learning some shit. And that's probably one of the best things about this show, is that they get you so engrossed in the humor and the silliness of how they tell the story that you completely lose track of the fact that you just learned about Great Expectations, and you're going to remember all of the bullshit in that story and all of the shit that happened. You've learned so much about Charles Dickens that you could probably write a fucking biography at this point, but you don't realize you've learned anything because you were just listening to Megan and RJ tell dick jokes. Again, peel back the dick jokes. You actually are learning. And that's one of the best fucking things about this show. I'm going to say it. When I first heard about this show, because again, I hear about so many shows. I was like, oh no, it's about a bunch of fucking books. I don't want to listen to a show about a bunch of fucking books. But when Derek came on here and talked about it, I was like, you know what? Fuck, I've got to give it a try. I've got to listen to this show. And it was especially after I started listening to him, after I started listening to Rolling Misadventures, because Megan is one of the co-hosts on Rolling Misadventures. And I was like, oh fuck, this is hilarious. Oh my God, I've got it. And I started going back. It's like, oh, I know this book and shit, like, and going back through them. And I love this show. It's great. I love it. And they just had an extended break because, summer, and I believe they're both actually college professors. I could be wrong, but yeah, they're both, again, very well educated. But yeah, you got to check it out. Even if you don't necessarily have an interest in literature, you should actually check out Oh No Lit Class. It's just fun. You'll learn some shit even if you didn't want to. Find them at onolitclass.com and all of the podcatchers and all those places, because that's where you're going to be listening to them. Again, Megan and RJ, Oh No Lit Class at onolitclass.com. But that's going to do it for me for this week. I've talked for way too long. I really shouldn't have, with my voice all fucked and being sick and shit. But you can get the links to all of those crazy assholes in the news and Megan and RJ over at Oh No Lit Class and so much other shit, like all the past episodes, and where you can buy merch and where you can be an awesome, cool person and support me on Patreon like my awesome supporters, Chris from Play Comics, Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss, Lisa and Sam from I Shake My Head, and Heather from Sunshine and Power Cuts. Oh man, I'm running out of breath. I need to stop. You can get me on all the social places at OddDadOut. Subscribe to the show. Leave me a review if you're cool like that. If not, I don't care. Join the Facebook group. And until next week, oddballs, thank you and good night.